Hello and welcome to Life at the Chocolate Factory. Today I want to talk about fear. And I want to talk about fear because I've felt afraid lately. I've had so much fear and I've really struggled with listening to my intuition. And that has led me to write a lot about fear in my journal. And it's really led me to sit and reflect on fear and analyze why I feel it. And it's made me think about moments on my journey where the fear has felt so real. And one of those instances is how I felt about Vegan Delights just a year and a half ago. In my head, I was telling myself that it was an intuition to follow this path. It was me being stupid. It was me being reckless. It was me being irresponsible. I was doing something that would ruin my entire life. That was my fear speaking. When things wouldn't go as planned, when the business wasn't doing well, that fear felt extremely real. And it was really difficult to understand what my intuition was saying and what the fear was saying. I couldn't really decipher between the two and know which one I should listen to because the fear and the logic, the fear was dressed as logic. It just felt like, in a logical perspective, it made so much more sense than going after pursuing my dream and doing what my soul believed was right for me, because that wasn't making sense in the here and now. It was just like things weren't working out and I couldn't see past that. And the fear was making so much sense because it was telling me, you can see that things aren't working out, so you should just stop doing this. And I think that I actually recently had a moment like that. It wasn't about my business, but it was about something else that's been a huge part of my life. And I don't really want to go into detail about it. There's been so much fear surrounding it, but I've also had so many beautiful downloads about it, so many beautiful feelings of love surrounding it. And I know that that is my soul telling me something, but then fear hits me right after and is like, you're crazy. Why are you thinking this? Why are you still pursuing this? And it gets really difficult, even if you have worked on yourself, even if you've come really far on your personal development journey or on your business journey, it still feels very real when you are in it. That's why I want to talk about fear in this episode. I've realized that most of the fear that I've experienced in my life has not been real. It's been a defense mechanism dressed as logic. And it's really difficult to identify because it disguises itself as protection, but truly it's blocking our blessings. And I think that the fact that it is disguising itself as protection makes it so difficult to look past. It makes it so difficult to, ground yourself and understand what really is true. Lately, I've really been reflecting on the fact that fear is just an illusion. And something that I learned in therapy is that it's really based on future or past projections and not on what's actually happening in the current moment. So a lot of times we have things like fear of rejection or fear of failure coming up when we're going to do something big, when we're taking on a huge project. And to me, at least, it feels like it really paralyzes me because I get so soaked up in it that I get consumed by it. When that happens, it's really difficult for me to know what I should do. I think that fear is really just a fog that's blocking us from seeing the truth. And it's normal for it to come up because we've probably had past failures. We've probably had instances where things haven't gone our way. And what happens, but the thing is, usually before those things happened, We've had moments where things really haven't gone our way. And I think that it's natural for those moments to shape us as human beings. And it's normal to be afraid, especially when we're taking on a huge project where we don't really know the outcome. But I also strongly believe that our intuition guides us towards things for a reason. There's a reason you feel a pull towards something or someone. There's a deeper reason behind it. I don't think that if you're super tapped in and if you can really feel your soul telling you something, I don't think that is bullshit. Because from my experience, sometimes it's taken a really long time, but the biggest blessings have come when I've listened to my intuition. Whereas when I've listened to the fear, I just get paralyzed, I don't take action, and I don't really do anything. And I think that the further I've come on my journey, the more I can identify what fear is and what the truth is. But that does not mean that I don't rabbit hole. I love rabbit holing. I love getting stuck. I had this discussion with my best friend when I was like, oh my God, I've come to this realization that like fear isn't real. And she was like, yeah, you come to that realization once a month. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And then I still put myself into rabbit hole where I'm like, no, this is real. But the thing is, if something really was that real, you wouldn't struggle so much with it. That's the thing, okay, for example, I want to use some examples that I've had like in real life. If I was meant to quit the journey of my business, if I was meant to just close my business down 1.5 years ago, I wouldn't struggle so much with that decision. It would be difficult, but I would intuitively feel that it was the right decision to make. When a relationship is ending, I've had many friendships and romantic relationships end. Even though it might be difficult in the moment, there's still something that really pushes you to make that decision because you know it's right. And after you've done it, you just feel relief. And that is a sign that you have followed a path that is true. Now, if you are working on your business and it's still moving forward and you just have this like massive fear come up after you've been intuitively guided to continue doing whatever it is that you're doing, and you just have this massive fear come up and you just get stuck like looping back and forth, like, what if this happens? What if that happens? You know what? Like, if it was supposed to end, you wouldn't obsess so much over it. It wouldn't be such a struggle. You would find some sort of clarity in it. That's how I view things, because I know that even when I've made difficult decisions and I've been like looping back and forth, I know that when I choose, like when I walk the path that is true for me, that kind of lifts, that heaviness lifts. But if I make a choice that's not true to my path, like stop putting in effort in my business and start looking at other options, then I rabbit hole, then I loop, and that suffering really just continues and continues. So I think that, I don't know if that made sense. It was a bit complicated to like describe the process that I've been through, but I just think that, yeah, a lot of times fear is an illusion. And it's a fog that blocks us. Now, with that being said, I also understand that it's extremely difficult to take action when you are scared and when you are in that. And the thing is, big action comes with a lot of fear. So if you're going to take action on something huge, like ending a relationship, like starting a relationship, inviting someone into your life after being alone for 5 years, for example, you are going to be really, really scared. Or if you're going to start a business, quit your job and start a business and pursue that path, you're going to shit your pants because you're so scared. It's normal. It is completely normal to be scared in a situation like that. It would be weird if you weren't scared in a situation like that. Usually when really huge, big, beautiful things are coming our way, we get really scared. Because that change is so massive, and you're going to have a period of not knowing anything. You're not going to know if it works out. It's so beautiful and great that you want it so deeply. So obviously you're going to get even more scared because you're like, what if I pursue this and it fails? It's the best thing that has happened to me in my life. And what if I go in and mess it up? That fear is going to arise. And I don't think that it should block us from taking action. I've learned that in many cases, action has been what has lifted that like fear from me. So I think that the biggest shift for me was that 5-6 years ago, I saw fear as a thing that was telling me to stop, whereas now I see it as a thing that tells me to jump right into whatever it is that I'm afraid of. That shift has been extremely liberating to me as a person because it's just like changed everything, because I know that the biggest, most beautiful things come with a lot of fear and anxiety. Understanding that and being able to master myself and my perception of fear has really led to massive growth for both me and my business and like everything that I'm working with around me. But how do you do it? That's a question that I often get because I have a lot of friends who are like trying to start their own businesses and they're like, but I'm so scared. And it's like, yeah, so was I. It's normal. It would be weird if you weren't feeling that way. And they're like, but how did you do it? And I think that's a good question. That's something that, I've been reflecting on a lot because I feel like I've taken so many massive risks in my life. And it's been things that are like, most people around me have been like, yeah, well, this isn't going to work out. This is too good to be true. Like, it's not going to work. Like 1 in a million can make this work. And, when you hear that, you get really scared. I think that what I've done and something that I've really been doing these like past few weeks is analyzing the situation. Been like, why am I so scared? What has my intuition previously told me about this situation? And an example of that is when I had to let one of my employees go. The first thing I felt, like the first thing that happened was a super calm energy like took over. And I just felt like, oh, I get it. The universe has been telling me this for quite some time now. And I understand it. I need to let him go this time. I need to let him go. That was the first thing that came into my mind. And then I went up. I really sat with that energy and I made the decision. I just felt it in my gut. I felt it. And then I went home that day and I started thinking. I was like, well, my business is going to fail if I do this. This is going to happen. That is going to happen. Everything is going to go to hell if I make this decision. And so I started spiraling and spiraling and spiraling. And I just like went through that for 2-3 days. And then I sat down again and I was like, okay, but the first thing that came to mind is what I should act upon. And I need to act because not acting, not taking action is prolonging that period of fear and anxiety. It's making it so much longer than it needs to be. You are just confusing yourself more and more when you prolong a period like that. You need to take action. That's what's going to make things shift. And so I came back to work and I was like, I need to take action on this. And I did. And what happened? I was a bit like confused. I felt a bit empty for a couple of hours. And then I started feeling pure bliss because I was like, oh my God, how could I not have, and it sounds weird, but it was for a very good reason that I let this person go. Anyone would have done it. Let's just put it that way. But then I started feeling like, oh my God, I'm really aligning with my path. Like that was not good for my business. It wasn't good for my company. I was just so afraid to make that decision because I was scared of what was going to happen if we were going to make it without that person. But everything actually got so much better when we did that. And so I've learned that when I start feeling really scared, I try to pinpoint why it is that I'm feeling scared. And I try to figure out if I would take action, what's the worst thing that could happen? And then I try to take that action really quickly. And I'm not saying like really, really quickly, like I outweigh the risks, etc. I understand them, but I try to listen to that first gut feeling that I had. And I try to take action on that as soon as I can because there's literally no point going back and forth, back and forth. You don't know how it's going to end. You just need to take action. So I think the best antidote to fear for me has been action, to take action despite fear. Rather than sitting at home and just like spiraling, I take action. I know what I need to do, and being afraid is a part of that process. It's normal. So I just decide to do it anyway. So whether that is writing an email to someone that you are afraid is going to reject you, or if that is starting your business, or buying a house, or getting into a relationship, or ending a relationship, just do it. Just do it. Honestly, if you are going back and forth so much regarding it, it's probably because what you are doing now isn't working. It's probably because the situations that you put yourself in now isn't working. Something needs to change. That's why you are spiraling. That is how I try to see things. Again, I'm not a shrink. I'm just talking about my own journey. But usually when you just take action, that spiraling stops. Your soul never speaks in fear. And that's really important to take with you on a journey like this. Fear is a shadow that comes from conditioning and ego. It's not the soul speaking. So whenever you feel really scared, try to tap into that. It makes it so much easier. And with that being said, I think we've reached the end of this episode. That's been really interesting for me because it's helped me reflect even more about fear. But if you want to, I think that something that's really healthy for each and every one of us is to reflect on where in our lives fear is still making decisions for us. Thank you so much for listening.